The last thing my mom ever said to me was, "If you leave now, don't come back." 3 days later, I found something in her house that made me wonder if she'd known this day was coming all along. Truth is, when those words came out of her mouth, I didn't believe she meant them at first. I mean, she'd said hurtful stuff before. Moms can throw sharp words when they're mad, but this felt different. You know when someone's eyes don't match their voice? Hers did. They were hard, cold, like she'd already decided I was out of her life. And I was standing there in the middle of the kitchen, my duffel bag half zipped, thinking, is this really happening? Do I just walk out and call her bluff, or do I drop the bag, apologize, and stay? The thing is, you can't unhear words like that, and you can't forget the tone they're said in. This all started over something that on paper sounds small, but in our house, nothing stayed small for long. It was Friday night. I'd been out late helping my buddy Kevin move an old couch up 3 flights of stairs. No drinking, no parties, no trouble, just sweat, bad pizza, and a sore back. I get home around 11, and she's sitting there at the table like some kind of judge waiting for the accused. "Where were you?" she says, not looking away. I tell her exactly where I was, even offer to call Kevin so she can hear it herself. But she keeps pressing. Don't lie to me. And here's the thing. When someone assumes you're lying even after you tell the truth, something in you snaps. I told her I was 29 years old, paying her rent every month, helping with bills, and she still treated me like I was 16, sneaking in after curfew. Her voice went up. Mine went up higher. Before I knew it, we were dragging out old wounds from years ago, the time I didn't go to that family reunion, the Christmas I spent with Dad's side, the job she thought I should have taken, but didn't. You ever been in one of those fights where you both stopped talking about the thing that started it? That was us. We didn't talk all Saturday. Not a word. Just those quiet, heavy footsteps and the sound of the fridge humming. Sunday morning, she comes in while I'm making coffee, and without even a good morning, she brings up this thing with my uncle. Apparently, he'd called her, asking why I hadn't followed up on some family paperwork. I had no idea I was even responsible for it. She accused me of making her look bad, of being careless, of embarrassing the family. I told her maybe I wouldn't be around to embarrass her anymore. And that's when I grabbed the duffel bag from my room and started packing. Socks, shirts, jeans, no plan. Just get out. She followed me to the kitchen, still talking, and then she stopped. She stood there for a second, and in that moment I thought maybe she was going to say something softer, something to make me pause. Instead, she dropped it. "If you leave now, don't come back." Not gonna lie, my hand froze on the zipper. It felt like the air went still. I didn't say a word. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. I just slung the bag over my shoulder, opened the door, and stepped into the cold air. I wish I could tell you it felt freeing, like in the movies. It didn't. It felt like the weight of the world was pressing on my chest. I walked to my car, an old beat-up Corolla that wheezed when you started it, and drove to Kevin's. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and turned on the television. We watched reruns of some dumb sitcom, but my brain was stuck in replay mode. Her face, her voice, that last sentence looping over and over. Monday came and went. I thought about texting her, but pride got in the way. Then, late that night, my cousin Sarah called. She never calls me unless something's wrong. She sounded nervous, like she was choosing her words carefully. "There's something you need to know about your mom," she said. My first thought was health. Maybe she'd gotten bad news from the doctor. But Sarah's voice didn't have that kind of heaviness. It had suspicion. "Come to the house," she told me, "and come alone." I asked her why, but she just said, "You'll see." That sat in my chest like a stone. I barely slept. Tuesday morning, I borrowed Kevin's car and drove over. The driveway was empty, curtains drawn, like no one was home. My stomach twisted. I stood there at the door, key in hand, realizing I hadn't been back since I walked out. 3 days. And now, something or someone inside that house was going to tell me why she'd really wanted me gone. I stood there with my key in my hand, staring at the door like it might open on its own. You know that weird hesitation, when you're not sure if you're about to walk into trouble or walk into something that changes everything? That was me. I slid the key in, turned it slowly, and the lock clicked louder than I remembered. The air inside smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner, the way it always did. But there was something else, like the faint scent of old paper, or maybe dust from something that hadn't been touched in years. I called out, "Sarah?" No answer. I stepped into the kitchen, half expecting to see Mom at the table with that same glare. But the chair was empty. A coffee mug sat there, though steam still curling from the top. My pulse picked up. "Sarah?" I called again. Then I heard faint footsteps upstairs. Not hurried, but deliberate. I followed the sound, each step on the old wooden stairs groaning under my weight. At the top, I saw her. Sarah was standing in the hallway, right outside Mom's bedroom, holding a shoebox. Her face was pale, eyes darting like she was deciding whether to hand it to me or throw it out the window. "We don't have much time," she whispered. I frowned. "What is this?" She handed me the box. It was heavier than I expected. Inside, under a layer of old receipts and random junk, there was a stack of letters tied with a thin piece of twine. My name was on the top envelope not just once, but in that looping handwriting I'd known my whole life. Mom's handwriting. I untied the twine, and my hands were shaking. Not gonna lie, I was scared to read them. I slid the first letter out. It was dated 6 years ago. "By the time you read this," it began, "you'll know why I couldn't tell you in person." I stopped reading, looked at Sarah. "What is this?" She glanced toward the stairs. "She doesn't know I found them. But you need to see what's in there before she gets back." Before she gets back. Those words made my stomach drop. I read on. The letter talked about something I'd never heard before: a bank account in my name, opened when I was a kid, with money from Dad. Money she told me was gone. The letter said it wasn't gone. It had been sitting there, untouched, and that she'd kept it quiet for my own good. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. I flipped to another letter, this one only a year old. She wrote about a decision she'd made to move the money, to protect it from people who might try to take it. She never named names, but I had a sinking feeling she was talking about family. I asked Sarah how she found this, and she told me she'd been looking for some old family photos when she saw the box hidden behind the winter coats in Mom's closet. She'd opened it out of curiosity, and then she read enough to know it was meant for me. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. Sarah hesitated. "Because she told me last week she was thinking of closing that account." She didn't say why, but she looked nervous. Nervous. My mom wasn't the type to get nervous, she was the type to make other people nervous. I slid the letters back into the box, my mind racing. If what I was reading was true, then all those years she'd said we couldn't afford things, all the times I'd scraped by on my own, she'd been holding on to money that was mine. I didn't know whether to feel betrayed or relieved. Maybe both. That's when I heard the front door open downstairs, the sound of her keys hitting the counter. Sarah's eyes went wide. "She's here." My heart kicked into overdrive. Part of me wanted to march right down those stairs, letters in hand, and demand an explanation. Another part wanted to slip out the back before she saw me, read every single letter, and figure out my move. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen, humming under her breath like it was just another Tuesday. I looked at Sarah. She mouthed, "Go." I didn't move. I just stood there, holding that box like it weighed 100 pounds, listening to my mom, the same mom who told me not to come back. pour herself a cup of coffee like nothing had happened. And then, she called my name. She called my name like she'd been expecting me the whole time. Calm, steady, not a hint of surprise. I froze at the top of the stairs, Sarah standing just behind me, eyes flicking toward the back door like she still thought I should run. "Come down here," Mom said, her voice carrying up through the house. And here's the thing. I could have walked away. I could have kept those letters, left without a word, and figured it out on my own. But something in her tone, not angry, not sweet, just certain, made me walk down. Each step creaked like it was announcing me. When I reached the bottom, she was standing at the counter, coffee mug in one hand, the other resting casually on that old yellow notepad she used for grocery lists. Only, there weren't any groceries written on it. My name was on the top line, in all caps. "You found it, didn't you?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her. Stared and waited. She set the mug down, took a slow sip first like we had all the time in the world, then finally looked me in the eye. "I was going to tell you," she said. "Just not yet." I asked her why. Why keep that money from me all these years? Why write letters instead of just talking to me? Why make me feel like I was broke when I wasn't? She sighed, like she'd been carrying that question for decades. "Because if you knew, you'd leave. And you'd never look back." That hit me like a brick. I told her I'd already left. She gave this sad little smile, like she'd won anyway. "Not for good," she said. "You always come back." I reached into the shoebox, pulled out one of the letters, and slid it across the counter toward her. "This doesn't feel like something you did for me," I said. "It feels like something you did to me." Her eyes hardened, just a little. "You think I don't know what would have happened if you'd had that money at 21? You'd have blown it. Or worse, given it to the wrong person. I kept it safe. For you." My voice rose. "Safe from me? Or safe for you?" Sarah shifted uncomfortably behind me, but I didn't care. I pressed her. She admitted she'd moved the money last week not because she planned to give it to me, but because she thought someone in the family was trying to find it. I asked who, and she shook her head. "Doesn't matter. They won't get it." And here's the thing. I realized in that moment, she wasn't just protecting the money, she was protecting her control. That account wasn't just numbers to her, it was a leash. She could tug me back whenever she wanted. I told her I wanted every detail, where it was, how much, and why she thought she had the right to keep it from me. She just took another sip of coffee and said, "You'll know when you're ready." That was it. No apology. No handover. Just the same cryptic control she'd always had. My hands were shaking from anger, from frustration, from the knowledge that I'd probably never get a straight answer. I turned to leave, box in hand, but she called after me again. "If you walk out now, you'll regret it." I didn't even turn around. "Already do," I said, and walked straight out the door. The air outside felt heavier than when I came in. Sarah followed me to the car, whispering that she'd help me figure it out, that maybe there were ways to track the account if we dug deep enough. I nodded, but my mind was still stuck on her face, calm, certain, like she was 3 moves ahead of me on a chessboard I didn't even know we were playing. 3 days earlier, I'd thought leaving was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Now I knew. The real fight was just starting. And here's the part I didn't tell her later that night. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice said, "I know about the account, and I know she's lying to you." I just sat there, phone in my hand, wondering if I'd just stepped into something way bigger than family drama.